So an individual that comes, a lot of times that conversation starts by just trying to understand what their goal is and where they're at right now. If something is purely an idea in someone's head, that's can be challenging to sort of move forward with. We have done it, but it typically involves a lot of conversations to just understand what are the requirements that fall out of it. And most people have a pretty good idea of the primary goal of whatever their particular widget is that they want to design. So they know they want it to perform a particular function. But the parts that are a little bit more challenging are the things that aren't necessarily part of that primary function. So what does the user interface, user experience look like? How is it going to be powered? If it's battery powered, what sort of battery life do you want out of it? When you talk about manufacturing, what are the manufacturing requirements? What are the quantities? For instance, IBT, one of our clients, they build controllers for upper limb prosthetics, and it's a very cool product. But in a good year, they might sell a couple thousand devices. The market is just not a massive market for people that need controllers for upper limb prosthetics. And their needs from an engineering standpoint are different than someone who's building a consumer product that they're anticipating selling hundreds of thousands or millions. So understanding what is involved with a particular product and helping the inventor to understand what's involved with that and make sure that they have the resources that they need to make the decision whether or not to move forward. Most often inventors contact us when funding is tight, if it exists at all. And so trying to help them get a scope on what the development effort might look like, working with them to lay out a development roadmap that says, okay, first we're going to do a proof of concept. Then that proof of concept can be used to raise funds from investors. Then once funds have been raised, then we can do an initial set of prototypes that develop an initial set of functionality. Then maybe that even ultimately gets released as a version one of the product, and additional features are planned for a version two or for a premium version of the product or something like that. And so we work the inventors to understand what that is, to help them to understand that process and those needs when we're working through the engineering process. And hopefully they come out of that with one, a good understanding of what they need to do and a plan to move forward. And then assuming that they have the funding to proceed or can get the funding to proceed, then we'll work with them to move through that process. And once it's to that point, it's very similar to working with other startups or even larger companies where the difference with the inventors tends to be on the front end. There's more work up front to make sure that they understand what they're getting into. They understand the costs associated with it. They understand realistic timelines, and they'll understand the overall scope of the effort. Once we get through that, it looks a lot like a startup type engagement where we start moving forward with the development effort. So we identify hardware, we do hardware design, we identify what the firmware is that needs to run on it. We start doing that. We work towards an early prototype. Maybe that's just a proof of concept. Maybe it's a little bit more of a prototype of the complete product. Really depends on the need. But the idea, again, being to get to something quickly that they can get in their hands and start using and experimenting with to make sure that we're on the right track. And then we iterate on that and proceed through until that product matches what their vision of it is and what they want it to be. And then again, similar to with startups, we can help them to work through regulatory certifications, transition to manufacture, working with manufacturers to do end of line testing and other things like that, and really just help facilitate getting it actually out into the marketplace.